Well, hello everyone out there in internet land. Hi, how you doing? And good evening. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to another session of Chattin on the Porch, our through the week review of items on the news. And boy, have we got a whole bunch of news to talk about. And I tell you what, I am normally an upbeat fellow, but I tell you what, right now I am really in a good mood. News that's coming out from everywhere is giving me a lot of reasons to be up. I hope you will be too after we go through some of it tonight. Looking forward to talking to all of you, and this is going to be a load of fun. We are on YouTube, we are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, so if you are not sent out a message to anybody, tell your friends, tell your enemies, your frenemies, your mothers, your brothers, your sisters, your misters, hey, you need to get in here because this guy is laying it down, dropping the truth bombs, and spilling the tea. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the fine fella in the fedora. Sometimes I am known as the beau in the chapeau. Sometimes I am called, some things I just cannot even repeat. That's how much is said of me. But anyway, y'all know where I'm coming from. Anyway, again, this is Chatting on the Porch. We're going to talk about some items in the news, and oh man, lots of news to be talking about. I tell you the truth, we're going to have a load of fun tonight. Glad to have you here with us. Man, there's all kinds of stuff popping tonight. Oh, by the way, by the by, you see this little sticker right here? I voted. That's right. It is primary day around the country in certain states, and one of them is my beloved West Virginia. The polls literally closed about the same time we were coming on the air, so we're going to pop over to Decision Desk every so often tonight, while we're on here at least anyway, and look at some of the races that are coming down. We've got a primary in West Virginia. Maryland's got a primary. West Virginia's polls just closed about 2 minutes ago. Maryland's will not close until about 8 o'clock tonight. But even beyond the primaries, there is stuff going on around the country. And let me tell you, there is news popping everywhere. And I am really hoping that Leanne is here tonight. Howdy, Zippy. How you doing? Good to have you here with us. I saw Gypsy early over on Rumble. So glad to have everybody here. I hope we're getting a lot of new people. I know we're getting people looking around going, who is this guy? Well, I'll tell you who I am. I'm just a common man with common sense. That's all I am. But I am talking about the things that everybody's thinking about. And hopefully we're dispensing some good common sense and some good humor and some wisdom and, a little bit of information about what you may not be able to keep up with. So anyway, we're glad to have everybody here. And like I said, I'm really hoping that Leanne is here tonight because the first story that we've got touches on her beloved Virginia. Leanne is one of our regulars here on the Electronic Front Porch, and she is, by her Twitter feed, based out of the Shenandoah Valley. And some news came out in the past few days that I have got to talk about because it is extremely exciting. Now, okay, Zippy, what you got here? He's been up all night trying to straighten out my days and nights, hoping to pass out in a couple of hours. Weather temps, but oh yeah, I was out mowing grass last night, dude, and I feel you. I absolutely feel you on this. My nose was running like a faucet. I hear you. And it's funny because while being out mowing my grass, I had my earbuds in. I was listening to, various live streams. And one of them that I try to listen to on a regular basis is Real American Politics, or RAP, R-A-P as he's known for short. And he's another content creator, much like myself. He focuses on politics, elections, cultural stuff, that sort of thing. Mostly elections and politics. So we sort of work in the same space, although his channel is much larger than mine, which is fine. I'm not complaining of that. I mean, he's been working hard. He puts out a video every day, a live stream every day, and he's absolutely out there working it. And as I was listening to Real American Politics last night, somebody shot a message into his chat about a poll out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, if you know anything about Virginia in presidential elections in the past, let's say, call it 8, 12, 16, The past 4 presidential elections, Virginia has gone for the Democrats. It went for Obama twice. It went for Hillary Clinton in 16. It went for Biden in 20. And usually by margins of anywhere from 4 to maybe 10%. I mean, I think the largest margin that the Democrats have gotten out of Virginia is 10%, and that was Joe Biden back in 2020. Well, a poll was commissioned recently, done by 2 different pollsters who both pollsters have connections to both President Biden's campaign and President Trump's campaign. So with that sets up what we're going to talk about first. And the poll, and interestingly enough, the poll was not done with the express purpose of looking at the presidential race. But the results that come out of the poll are absolutely astonishing with less than 6 months to go to the election. So with that said, I want to take you to the first thing we've got tonight. And I think you guys, if you haven't seen this yet, you're going to have reason to start getting very happy. This is by a group, initials are VANSM, Virginians Against Neighborhood Slot Machines. Apparently, there's a move afoot in Virginia to allow for slot machines at local grocery stores, etc. And the headline of this post is "New Poll Shows Strong Opposition to Legalizing Skill Games." Now, for the record, in my state of West Virginia, we went through this fight, call it 20 years ago, and we legalized them. Back then, they were known as the gray machines. They were out and about, but they weren't in a casino. They were in their own private little, go-to little places, okay? And, West Virginia passed laws and regulations about how to deal with it, yada, yada, yada. Well, now apparently Virginia's getting ready to go through the same thing. And there's a group, this VANSM, that commissioned for a poll to be done. And that sets up what we're going to look at next. Fabrizio Ward and Impact Research, both at the top of their fields, each with partners conducting polling for President Trump, that would be Fabrizio, and Impact Research, and that'd be for Biden, released new polling that reinforces Virginians' overwhelming opposition to legalizing dangerous convenience store slot machines. Quote, "The Commonwealth of Virginia has set a precedent of fostering a gaming environment that prioritizes safety and responsibility. This poll is further evidence that voters in the Commonwealth do not believe convenience store slots align with Virginia values and should remain illegal," said Nick Larson, spokesman for Virginians Against Neighborhood Slot Machines. Okay. Consistent with their actions during the legislative session, proponents of these machines are lashing out, now refusing to sell lottery tickets and threatening funding for Virginia public schools, once again placing their own self-interest above what is best for Virginians. Governor Youngkin has until May 17th to act on Senate Bill 212 that would allow thousands upon thousands of these machines to operate in Virginia. We encourage him to look at the results of the poll and listen to the concerns of Virginians. Okay, so now we understand why this poll was being done. It was not primarily to look at the presidential race in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Okay, fine. Now, keep in mind, this is not a per se Republican poll. This is not a Democrat poll. This was done jointly between 2 polling firms who both happen to have ties to each presidential candidate. As I said, Tony Fabrizio has done polling on behalf of Donald Trump. The other pollster has done polling, and I think is doing current polling for Joe Biden. Okay. And what sets up next is as follows. So here's the memorandum. Virginians Against Neighborhood Slots, Bob Ward, who's a partner at Fabrizio Ward, Matt Hogan, who's an Impact Research. And here are the specifics of the survey. 500 registered voters conducted by Fabrizio Ward and Impact Research on behalf of Virginians Against Neighborhood Slot Machines. The survey was conducted via live telephone interviews, 22% landline, 37% cell phone, and online via text to web. The margin of error is 4.4%. at a 95% confidence level. Okay. Now, I want to get you to the question about the presidential race in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm going to take this down because I want this to have the full impact that I think it should have. Let me get to it. Okay. Here we go. If the election for president were held today and the candidates were Donald Trump, the Republican, and Joe Biden, the Democrat, for whom would you vote? Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden, according to this poll, only has a 1-point lead in Virginia. Let me put that back up there again so you can see it for yourself. 43-42, Joe Biden, according to this poll, only has a 1-point lead on Donald Trump in the Commonwealth of Virginia with 5.5 months to go to the election. Now, if you can tell by the sound of my voice, and I hope you can, you will realize what an exciting development this is. This poll, by the way, this poll's not getting a lot of play out in the media. I mean, I know Breitbart ran an article about it the other day on their website, but that's it. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, nobody else is talking about this. I mean, if they are, point it out to me. That's fine. Glad to hear it. But as it stands right now, no one's talking about this poll. Okay? And no, I'm not. Seabass, I'm not doing it. I'm not estimating the power to cheat, but you're missing my point here. And I'm about to get to it. Could the Democrats cheat? Yeah, of course they can cheat. That's not the point. Ladies and gentlemen, this state, since 2008, the Commonwealth of Virginia has gone to the Democrats in the presidential election by comfortable margins of anywhere from, like I said, 4 to 10%. The best they ever did, and I'll put it up here on the map, the best they ever did was 2020, when Joe Biden won by just a touch under 500,000 votes. Let's call it 450,000 votes, and a 10% margin of victory in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Let me put this back up here again for everybody to see it. 1 point. And the margin of error on this poll is about 4.4%. Now, you ask the question, why am I so excited about this? Well, like I said, Virginia hasn't gone Republican in the presidential election in 20 years. The last time it did was George W. Bush in 2004. Let me also show you the most recent poll. Yeah, I know. And 14% undecided. I was talking about this with a buddy of mine today, Smiling Jack, who he's worked in campaigns, followed campaigns. He's done everything else. And he's kind of like me. If you got 14% undecided, you're not undecided. You're not going to vote for the incumbent. You just don't want to admit it. Okay. But let me show you polling that has been done on Virginia. Okay. The most recent poll that was done was back in February. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not necessarily surprised by the result of this poll and the poll was done at the tail end of April. Okay, so it's maybe about 2 weeks old. But news of this thing is just now getting out. I'm not surprised by this at all. I've been saying this. Other political commentators have been saying this. Everybody's been saying the same thing. There is a decided shift in this country on the question of who should be president, be it Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Biden had the advantage the last time for a lot of different reasons. COVID, Trump's response to it, the chaotic nature of Trump's campaign, the lockdowns, everything else, okay? But even in all that, Biden barely, and I mean barely, beat Donald Trump. I want to go back to that CNN poll for a second and just show you what I'm talking about. Whoops. Hang on. What's going on here? Hang on. What is this? What is this nonsense? Where'd I go? I promise I am still here. What is this? Why have I gone dark? Oh, my word. Hang on a second. Hang on. Let me step out and I'll come right. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, let me pull this back up. I mean, like I said, this is just, to me, just extraordinary. All right. I got to do one more thing here. Hang on. Got to do something real fast. It's starting to rain and my windows are up. I'm not going anywhere. Hang on. Hang on. I'm right here. Don't worry. Okay, that's better. All right, I'm back. All right. I agree with you. I agree. But anyway, let me get back to pull this back up and let you get back to what I was talking about here. Okay, here's the map from 2020. All right. And check this out. 306 electoral votes for Biden, 232 for Trump. Okay. The margin of victory in the popular vote was about 4.4%. Look at the states that Biden won. All right. Since we're talking about Virginia, he won Virginia by 10 points. Now he's at this point still hanging on to it. Could Biden still win Virginia in November? Yes. Do I think he will? Quite possibly. Only on the basis of recent voting pattern. Okay, we're talking about a state that for 20 years now has gone to the Democrats in the presidential election. Okay, so I could see him hanging on to it. Go up to New York. He won by 23 points. The last set of polling that anybody saw in recently in New York has Trump down by 9. That's a shift of about 14 points. All right. Take a look at the most recent set of numbers coming out of Siena College. Okay. Give me 1 second here to pull this up. Take a look at this, folks. Arizona, Trump +6. Georgia, Trump +9. Michigan, Biden +1. Nevada, Trump +13. Pennsylvania, Trump +3. Wisconsin, Trump +1. Oh, I know. I think I'm over the freeze. I think I'm through it now. I'm looking at my camera. Shouldn't be doing this to me, but you see my point, okay? And that is a lot of things are happening on the ground. All of them are good, and I think it's worth pointing out. I really do. I think we need to be reminded that there is good news, and yeah, there's reason. There's reason to worry, and there's reason to pay attention. I don't disagree with that at all. Okay, I get it. I think we have reason to hope. If we do our job come November, A, we get people out to the ballot box, and B, we cut out and cut down the risk of cheating and fraud, we're going to win this thing. We're going to win this thing. So we have reason to hope, my friends. We have reason to hope. So yeah, I think we've got a lot of reason to talk and feel good about it. No, that's what's going on. There we go. And I'm not ready to say landslide. I'm not ready to say landslide at all. But there's definitely stuff going on. Now, a few other things to point out. Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics had a chart because apparently, and I haven't got the clip pulled up. But apparently Morning Joe, when he saw those numbers coming out of the New York Times Monday morning, just about freaked and was trying to figure out some kind of justification for what the heck is going on. Okay. And Joe 56984 over on Rumble. And good evening, Joe. Glad to have you here. Says Virginia has so many federal employees, it's very difficult for any Republican to win. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I agree. But for the fact that Donald Trump at this point is only down by 1 point in Virginia, a state Republicans have not won in 20 years, it emphatically proves the point that I and other commentators and pollsters, I'm thinking particularly of Rich Barris, have been saying for months now. There's a decided shift. The shift is on. I mean, I'll give you an example here. I mean, going back to what I started to say, Joe Scarborough of MSNBC saw those numbers from the New York Times on Monday morning, showing all that red for Donald Trump in all those battleground states, and he's trying to find a justification for it. Well, here's what he came up with. Quote, the New York Times Siena poll traditionally has consistently slanted towards Trump. And I read that and I went, what the heck are you talking about? And apparently Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics came to the same conclusion. And he put together an absolutely fantastic chart, which I'm going to show you right now. Okay. Let me put this up here. Here are the battleground states, all 7 of them. The first column is final results. Biden 0+3 in Arizona, 0.2 in Georgia, 2.8 in Michigan, Nevada 2.4, Trump, North Carolina, Trump 1.3, Biden 1.2 in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Biden 0.7. You see what I mean? I mean, you go back and look at the Electoral College, it looks like a daggone wipeout for Biden. I mean, Biden, okay? 306 to 232. Keep something in mind, folks. Basically, about 40,000 votes. 40,000 votes is what separated Donald Trump and Joe Biden. 20,000 in Wisconsin, 11,000 in Georgia, 10,000 in Arizona. Okay. He wins those states. Let me back out of here for a second. Let me show you guys something. He picks up Georgia, 16 electoral votes. Arizona, 11. There's 27. 37. Tack that on to what Trump had. He'd have been at 269 and would have needed just one more vote from somewhere, anywhere, in any combination. It would have been a lot closer than what it was. Okay. But Tom Bevan has this chart. Look at this thing again. I ask you. Okay. Here's Biden's final result. Here's what the Real Clear Politics average had going into Election Day. And here's the New York Times Siena College polls just before the election. The New York Times was off by almost 6% on Arizona, over 5% on Michigan, almost 4% on Nevada, over 4% on North Carolina, 4%, almost 5% on Pennsylvania, and over 10% on Wisconsin. The point is this: the New York Times is not some kind of Trump-friendly poll. Far from it. They've never polled Trump accurately. They've never polled Trump accurately in the battleground states. Okay? Now, all of that all of that gets to one of the most ridiculous articles that I have seen and read in a very long time. And I will give. I've always said I will always give credit where it's due. Real American Politics was talking about this on his live stream today. Uh, Red Eagle Politics was talking about this evening, and now I'm going to talk about this. I mean, this article is just so remarkable for its. I mean, the reporting is honest. I'm not disputing what the reporters who wrote the article, what they're reporting. But if what they're reporting is true, the level of delusion inside the White House about the state of this race is extraordinary. Joe 56984 over on Rumble says, even with all the election fortification in my state of Arizona, Biden barely won. Republicans have increased their registration advantage by 100,000 since 2020. Absolutely. That is absolutely true, Joe. Absolutely true. So let me get some comments in real quick here before we get to that article. Yeah. It would be great. It would be absolutely great. Yeah. Oh, I agree with this completely. Totally. Now, that gets to this article, and it comes from Axios of all places. But you guys have got to see this, because I read this and I went, these people cannot truly believe this. So let's get to it. Headline: Biden's polling denial, why he doesn't believe he's behind. Let me read that again. Biden's polling denial, why he doesn't believe he is behind. This is not from Breitbart. This is not from the Gateway Pundit. This is not from Human Events. This is not from supposed right-wing media. This is from Axios, okay? By Hans Nichols and Alex Thompson. President Biden doesn't believe his bad poll numbers, and neither do many of his closest advisors, according to people familiar with the matter. The dismissiveness of the poor polling is sincere, not public spin, according to Democrats who have spoken privately with the president and his team. That bedrock belief has informed Biden's largely steady as she goes campaign, even as many Democrats outside the White House are agitating for the campaign to change direction, given that Biden is polling well behind where he was 4 years ago. The public polling simply doesn't reflect the president's support, they say. In public and in private, Biden has been telling anyone who will listen that he's gaining ground and is probably up on Donald Trump in their rematch from 2020. Quote, while the press doesn't write about, the momentum is clearly in our favor with the polls moving towards us and away from Trump, Biden tells donors during a West Coast swing last week. A few days earlier, confronted with some of his bad poll numbers in a rare interview with CNN, Biden offered a more sweeping indictment of polling methodology. Quote, the polling data has been wrong all along. You guys do a poll at CNN. How many folks have to call to get one response? Do you have to call to get one response? The latest polling in the 6 battleground states likely to decide the presidential race, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, doesn't paint a rosy picture for Biden. A new New York Times Siena survey, which sampled more than 4,000 people across the swing states, had Trump winning 5 of them among registered voters. A Bloomberg News poll last month similarly found Biden trailing Trump in 6 of the 7 swing states. Also polled was North Carolina. Some national polls have showed Biden ahead or tied with Trump, and in several of other polls, the president is within surveys' margin of error. That gives Democrats and Republicans alike ammunition to claim they have momentum. Biden likes to cite his numbers in a recent PBS Marist poll, which shows him ahead. Polling errors in recent years prove that polling isn't destiny. Trump overperformed his polls in 2016 and 2020. All right, I want to stop there for a second. That line right there should be enough to wake up Biden and the Democrats in the White House Let me read that again. Polling errors in recent years prove that polling isn't destiny. Trump overperformed polls in 2016 and 2020. I want to ask you a question, or I should say, maybe repeat a question that Rich Barris asked the other day on his live stream, Inside the Numbers. In the last two presidential elections that Donald Trump has been in, he has overperformed what the polls said he would get. Why should I or anyone else at this point believe that that will not happen again in 2024? Let me repeat the question. Why should I or anybody else not believe that Donald Trump will once again overperform the polls in this year's election? He's done it twice already. Okay. So if he's running with these kind of leads right now, it is altogether possible he gets more than what the polls are showing on election day. Okay. Getting back to the article. And Democrats did better than expected in many 2022 midterm contests. But midterm contests, and again, thank God for Rich Barris, midterm contests are not indicative of how presidential races go. Okay? Whole different set of voters, whole different set of dynamics. Okay, so if the Democrats are hanging their hats on, hey, we did okay in 2022 and Joe Biden was the president, Joe Biden wasn't on the ballot. His policies may have been, but he wasn't. And there's a big difference of those two things. Anyway, back to the article. Many aspects of Trump's candidacy, including his legal battles, are unprecedented and add more mystery to the election projections. However, Biden feels about all the public polls that he's clearly well briefed on them and often goes deep into the crosstabs. Quote, we run strongest among likely voters in the polling data, Biden told wealthy donors in Medina, California on Saturday. And while the national polls basically have us among registered voters up by 4, among likely voters we're up by more. In the last 23 polls, I've been ahead in 10 of them. Trump has been ahead in 8, and we've been tied in 5, he said in a campaign event in Tampa, Florida, citing surveys by Marist, Echelon, and Marquette. Well, if you're citing surveys by those 3 pollsters, let me tell you something, I wouldn't get real happy because none of them are real good. But hey, if it helps you sleep at night. Biden and his advisors have long felt underrated by the D.C. establishment and public polls, but they're comforted by his come-from-behind 2020 primary victory. Voters, when it matters, appreciate Scranton Joe, they say. This election will be close, like all presidential races. What matters is which candidate has a popular and winning agenda, and which candidate and their campaign are putting in the work to reach the voters who will decide this election. Biden spokesperson Kevin Munoz said that candidate is Joe Biden. Some Democrats think the Biden team is in denial about the polling and sleepwalking into defeat. The Biden team is convinced the country will not reelect Trump once they face the choice in November. Voters will decide which side is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, it is one thing for a political candidate, regardless of whether they are an incumbent or whether they're the challenger, it's one thing for them to be delusional. It's another thing altogether if the campaign staff and his staff are generally delusional. Okay. It's even worse though when the candidate and the staff are equally as delusional as one another. Okay? I'm sorry. You can sit there and say that one pollster is giving you a bad poll. You can sit there and say it when 2 of them do it. But when almost everybody is putting out polls that show you have a problem, the pollsters aren't the problem. It's you. Okay? I want to go back to one point in this article from Axios. The dismissiveness of the poor polling is sincere and not public spin, according to Democrats who have spoken privately with the president and his team. This is a mistake. And I'm not normally in the habit of giving Democrats advice on how to fix their problem, but somebody needs to get their head out of their rear end and walk into Joe Biden's office and look at him and go, Mr. President, you're wrong. I mean, you got a situation where one of two things is going on in my book. Okay. Either A, you've got a campaign and presidential staff that's afraid of Joe Biden to tell him bad news, or B, they're just as delusional as Joe Biden is. Okay. To me, it's one of those two things. Either they're scared to death of him, of the wrath that he'll bring down if he gets bad news, like a child throwing a temper tantrum, or they're just as delusional as he is. One situation's bad, the other one's dangerous. It's bad if the president scares everybody to death, people don't want to tell him the truth. It's dangerous for the country if the president and his staff are just as equally delusional, because the delusions don't stop with the campaign. They filter into everything else. There's the world as it is, and then there's the world as they see it, and the world as they see it is perfect, and everybody over here is just suffering all get out, which I've got a couple or three stories that prove the point of how tone deaf this president and his White House staff are. Was very down on Monday's show, not due to the polls, due to those who hire him to poll who wish. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope he doesn't. He's good guy. I heard the same thing from him, and I truly hope he does not get out of the polling business, because Rich Barris is probably one of the best there is. He's honest, he's transparent, he does everything he can to try and, put out good polling, and I don't want his voice. And again, it's Rich's life, it's his life and his family's. I get it, but if you happen to hear this, dude, there's a lot of us out here, and I count myself as one of them. Please, you know, if you choose to get out of the polling business, I get it, but please don't do it anytime soon, dude, because your voice, your honesty is desperately needed. And I mean that in all sincerity. You're a good dude, and you do good work, and it is appreciated. But I mean, it's just, I cannot, well, yeah, I can. I can believe he's this delusional about this. And it starts to explain why his campaign is continuing on the same course that they are. They're not really changing anything. Oh, they're making little tiny adjustments, but the big overall strategy of how they're going to run this race, they're not changing a thing. And apparently it's on the basis of, well, the polls are wrong. You know, um, what's the old saying? It can't be hallucination if it can't be a hallucination if more than one person saying the exact same thing. I mean, look, to you Democrats out there who are supporting Joe Biden and to the White House staff and his campaign, look, you can put on a brave face all you want to. And you know what? In the end, you might win in November. Okay? You might win in November. But if this election were tomorrow, you would get your butt kicked hard. You would lose most, if not all, of the battleground states. And you're on the verge of losing states that you haven't lost in years. If truly that poll out of Virginia is indeed correct, then you could lose Virginia. I still say you're going to lose Minnesota. And I'd look for a few other states to go that normally don't go, or they're going to be so close that Trump may not win them, but his down ballot effect will sweep Republicans into the House of Representatives that otherwise shouldn't win those races. I mean, there's nobody that's looking at this that's not, I mean, James Carville last week, my favorite semi-retired political operative, just went on a rant. He's like, nobody's listening to me. Nobody's listening to us. We're throwing everything against the wall, and it's like spaghetti. It's not even sticking. And look, it's one thing for guys like me to try to tell you Democrats that you're screwing this race up. Okay. You don't want to believe the front porch conservative. That's fine. That's up to you. But when guys like James Carville, okay, and Mark Penn and Stan Greenberg and Doug Schoen, old heads in your party, guys who've been around for a long time, when they're all trying to tell you the same thing, you've got to do something here. You've got to change. And you're not listening to them. If you lose this November, don't say you weren't warned by people in your own party, because they're trying to tell you, each one of them in their own way, each one of them in their own style, and more importantly, each one on the basis of their own experience. Okay? You are losing this race. And yes, in case you're wondering, I hope you do lose it. The country would be better off. But yeah, right now, I mean, there's news popping up everywhere. I saw that poll out of Virginia, and again, I got to thank, Real American Politics and his channel. If you're not subscribed to him, check him out. Check out Red Eagle Politics too. Both of them are good guys. Give them a sub. Give me a sub if you're not subbed to my channel and you're here for the first time. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there is absolutely, there's something going on out here. It's being fueled by a lot of things. Young voters are willing to give Donald Trump a chance. Notice I didn't say Republicans. They're willing to give Donald Trump a chance. Okay. And yeah, this is a good point too. I agree with this completely. I mean, Roe was going to need to be overturned anyway. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not going to be nearly the issue the Democrats are hoping that it is. I mean, they're going to use it to try and drive people to the polls, but this election is not going to be about abortion. Inflation, cost of living, the economy, the southern border, immigration, and crime. Those 6 issues in one order or another. Okay. We are headed for a referendum election. Totally. I did get a question. Who was it? Well, that was Dave. What are the chances of Trump being in handcuffs logistically? Not to change subject. Fair question. I think they're about even. I think it's 50-50. And I stand by what I said. They put him in handcuffs. They put him in jail. He's just won the election, because ain't nobody in this country, nobody is going to tolerate that. Democrat, Republican, Independent, they're going to take one look at that and go, you're trying to lock up the political opponent of the President of the United States. Screw you. I'm not putting up with that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot believe that Joe Biden could be this delusional. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But then again, we're talking about the Democrats. I think at one point or another, we all think about what I'm about to say next, and I think we all know it to be true. Desperation makes people do things they otherwise would never even contemplate doing. Now, look at it from the perspective not just of Joe Biden, not just of the current White House staff. Look at it from the perspective of the deep state, okay, which is represented by the modern Democrat Party. You never see the deep state out in the open, but they've got their ambassadors, shall we say. From the perspective of the deep state, political power to them is a birthright. And when interlopers like Donald Trump come along and take away what should be their natural God-given birthright that is passed on to generation and generation and generation of progressive politicians and policymakers, and Donald Trump doesn't do what the deep state has always been used to doing, then you begin to understand why these people get crazy. Trump And I'm not trying to excuse anything he did in his first term. Don't get me wrong here. Okay. But I will say this, and I think it's a fair statement. I don't think Donald Trump realized how dirty the deep state could be. The depth of the corruption. He now realizes it. And not just because per se of things they did to him while he was in office. He realizes it because of the things they've done to him now that he's out of office. Look at it from their perspective. If he gets back in, knowing everything he knows now, he's got the potential, from their perspective, to do more damage in his second term than he ever thought about doing in his first. Now, will he do it? I don't know. He might not. But the potential for him to do it is there, and they know this. They've got to stop him. They have spent decades setting up systems, protocols, regulations, laws, everything. And now everything they've built over all these decades is at risk. They cannot let Trump come back to the presidency. Even if he comes back and it turns out he doesn't do anything, they can't run that risk. Think about all the things that would be exposed. And yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, Seabass. He promised to expose it, and boy, did he. And here's a good man who's in chat. Good evening, sir. Howdy, partner. Glad to have you. Yeah, I mean, they can't run the risk of letting Trump back in. Because look at it from Trump's perspective. If Donald Trump wins this election, he never has to run for another election again. There's no office that he ever this is his last race. If he wins, he's loose. He ain't got to worry about it. Talk about the potential for a bull in a china shop. Oh, baby, it's there. It's absolutely there. He could wreak havoc on these people. So, yeah, my friends, there are moments that we're all sitting there going, oh, they could steal it. Oh, they could take it away. Oh, they could. Yeah, I know. But what if we actually do what we need to do? Get everybody and their brother-in-law out to vote, even people who never vote on a regular basis. And what if we can cut down the fraud and the cheat and the steal? If we can do those two things simultaneously in this election, I don't know how the Democrats steal it. They'll try, but I don't know how they would do it. Over on Rumble, Joe says, part of me thinks the Dems are using Biden as a scapegoat. They'd rather lose this election and start fresh in 28 with either Newsom, Michelle Obama, or Gretchen Whitmer plus 4 more years. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that real easy. There's no great love for Joe Biden in the Democrat Party. There never has been. So could they use him for a scapegoat? Absolutely. I could see that completely. Could see it completely. Oh, goodness. I have been on a roll. Holy cow. Sorry about all that, folks. But yeah, I saw this stuff. I had to put it together. I wanted to bring it to you. I hope you enjoyed looking at it. And before we shift over to our next subject, I did. Oh, I saw this. I did not get it pulled up. Gypsy, have you tag me on Twitter with this if you haven't done it already. And if you have, remind me of it. And I'll tell you what, we may not get to it tonight, probably won't. And I apologize for that because I just didn't have it up on my roster of things, but we will absolutely get into this with Mushbrain. Oh, okay. Yes. Bless your heart. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear. That's fantastic. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Absolutely. So before we shift over to our next topic, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. This is Chattin on the Porch. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on Twitter. We're talking about some news, political, cultural, and otherwise. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. And while you're here, daggone you, I love you, but hit that thumbs up button. Helps the old algorithm. I can't believe anything got named after Al Gore, but he apparently got rhythm named after him, so that's just shocking to me. But it helps with the Al Gore rhythm. So he may not have invented the internet, but he definitely had something to do with rhythm. So hit the thumbs up button on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button on Rumble. And since we're sort of at a paused moment, let's take a look at what's going on. Some of the primaries around the country. We'll start with West Virginia. And yeah, we've got votes coming in so far. No shock here. Biden's winning the presidential election. No shock there. Ooh. Ooh. Look at there. That's nice. Trump's just about doubled Biden's vote total. That's nice. I was wondering about this. The Senate primary. Okay. Jim Justice has been declared the winner of the Senate primary on the Republican side. So he will go up against, who is he going up against? Okay, we don't know who yet, but it looks like Glenn Elliott. I don't know a lot of details about him, but so far at this point, with 9% in, he's winning. And let's take a look at the governor's race. Yeah, this one's going to go into the night. Morrissey is the favorite according to the polls. Moore Capito, I forget what his relation is to Shelley, the U.S. senator. Not sure if that's her son or a nephew or what. But yeah, he's running a close second to Morrissey. So yeah, this one's going to get interesting before the night is over with. And on the Democrat side, well, okay, they've got their sacrificial lamb. And when I think about West Virginia being such a Republican state, if you all know anything about West Virginia, I mean, West Virginia for decades has been was reliably Democrat, and about 20 years ago, the switchover started. What do I think about Youngkin as the Veep? I know a lot. I know some people are pushing him. I don't know. I don't frankly think he'd be that good of a choice. To me, he's and this is no offense to viewers of mine who live in the Commonwealth of Virginia. To me, Youngkin's kind of meh. We could take him or leave him. We need a bold choice. It's got to be, to me, and I've said this before, I'll say it, it's got to be somebody that scares the deep state worse than Trump does, if for no other reason to protect Trump. And y'all know what I'm getting at. All right, let's see what's going on in Maryland. That's got another interesting Senate race, too. Okay, no results are in yet. All right. Okay, no problem. We'll check on that. We'll keep checking on Maryland as the night goes along, or at least while we're on here anyway. So yeah. Now, let's see. When the Fed started talking about EV West Virginians, I said, no, thank you. Yeah, that stuff's creeping into my state, unfortunately. Ah, well. So I said a little earlier that I had some stories that talked about how out of touch Biden and his White House staff are with the American people. And I've got some stories that sort of set this up. And Gypsy, I've got to thank you because you sent me one of these. So I said that there were certain issues that were going to decide this campaign, right? Inflation, cost of living, the economy, border security, immigration, etc., and crime. Okay. Well, we got some news today about inflation, and contrary to the opinion of the president, it's not good. This is from Fox Business. Wholesale inflation unexpectedly jumps again to highest level in a year. Labor Department releases closely watched wholesale inflation data article by Megan Henney of Fox Business. Now, let me pump this up a little bit. There we go. That's better. Okay, now we're talking. Inflation at the wholesale level rose much more than expected in April, the latest sign that price pressures within the economy remain elevated and difficult to tame. The Labor Department said Tuesday that its producer price index, which measures inflation at the wholesale level before it reaches consumers, rose 0.5% in April from the previous month. On the annual basis, prices remain up 2.2%, the highest level since April 2023. While the monthly gain is noticeably higher than the 0.3 increase forecasted by LSEG economists, the headline figure is in line with expectations. Well, whoop-dee-doo. In another sign that points to the stickiness of high inflation, core prices, which exclude the more volatile measurements of food and energy, rose 0.5% for the month. That is higher than the 0.2 estimate and the gain recorded the previous month. The figure was up 2.4% on a 12-month basis, in line with expectations. Quote, sticky inflation looked downright stuck this morning after a much hotter than expected inflation ring, said Chris Larkin, managing director of trading and investing at E-Trade. But last month's numbers revised lower. This report may not have been as much as an upside shock as it first appeared to be. High inflation has created several financial pressures for the U.S. household, which are forced to pay more for basics like rent, groceries, and gasoline. Price hikes are particularly devastating for lower-income Americans because they tend to spend more of their already stretched paychecks on necessities and therefore have less flexibility to save money. Okay? So that's the first piece of news. Inflation is going up. Now, there's wholesale inflation, which is the producer side of it. There's retail inflation, which you and I deal with mostly. But either way, it still all comes down on you and me. So inflation is still going up. Then we got a piece of news out of the New York Post. And I want to thank Gypsy for sending me this one. This is an article by Todd Bensman. An illegal border crosser, probably Jordanian, tried to force his way onto a U.S. Marine base. Why isn't this a bigger story? In the early morning of May 3rd, two men in a box truck pulled up to the front gate of Quantico Marine Corps Base, 35 miles southwest of Washington, D.C., and tried to lie their way in, claiming they were Amazon delivery men. After skeptical military police channeled them to an area for secondary security inspection, the driver hit the gas in defiance of halt orders and tried to barrel the truck into the base's town center. Quick-thinking MPs put up road barriers that stopped the truck. The Marines ended up citing the two for trespassing on federal property. We only know this because of a report in the Potomac Local News founded in 2010 to, quote, to help people understand what is happening in their local communities in Northern Virginia. Yet while reporter Kelly Sinkowski, who broke what happened, focused on her local readership, she's shocked the story hasn't gotten more national attention. Sinkowski's story quoted a prepared email statement from base spokesman Captain Michael Curtis shared with me and the Post, confirming the incident's basic contours, but no more than that. But Sinkowski kept pressing. She cited, quote, multiple anonymous sources who told her that one of the two individuals in the truck was a Jordanian foreign national who, quote, recently crossed the southern border into the U.S., and also that one of the people in the truck, didn't say which one, is on the U.S. terrorist watch list. After citing the two men for trespassing, the Marine Corps turned them over to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the sources told Sinkowski. The big question in the room that has gone unanswered for more than a week after Sinkowski reported the story is, did illegal border crossers from the Middle East just try to attack a U.S. military base? Many more questions deserve answers too, but the federal government has gone mum. Have U.S. investigators ruled out a terrorism motive? Do U.S. counterterrorism agencies even want to know, and is anyone even investigating that question? Were there any weapons in the truck or on the illegal immigrants it carried? Was the truck itself a weapon? When and how exactly did the men enter the United States? Was the Jordanian a Palestinian Arab from Gaza and angry about U.S. support for Israel's retaliatory war? Many Palestinians hold Jordanian passports. Did an overwhelmed Border Patrol accidentally release the one who was on the FBI's terrorist watch list? It wouldn't be the first time. Border Patrol has encountered at least 340 immigrants on the terrorism watch list since the mass migration began 3 years ago, and on this goes. I have a question for you guys. Has anybody heard about this till now? And Gypsy, I want to thank you for pointing this to me. Which, by the way, folks, if you find stories that you would like for me to talk about, please tag me on Twitter. Try and get them to get my attention. I'll be I'll be glad to try and talk about them. And let me say, I hold all editorial rights to either talk about or not talk about it. But if you want to get my attention, tag me in something. Let me see it. You know, we'll find somewhere to talk about sometime, somewhere, maybe. And I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be. I want you to get my point. Send it to me, please. I've got a good set of eyes, but even I only see so much. But I want to thank Gypsy for pointing this one out to me. So inflation is up. We may have had a terrorism attack on a U.S. military base here in America, 35 miles south of Washington, D.C. Zippy over on Rumble, and thank you for the Rumble rant. I appreciate it. For a good laugh, Mitt Romney, I did a few politicians a decade ago, dubbed the series No Politicians Left Behind. All right. Well, thank you very much. We will hang on a minute. Let me look at something real fast here. I think I saw, where was it, Zippy? Where'd you send that to? Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can. Okay. I will check it out. But yeah, we've got inflation continuing to go up. We've got American families being squeezed every time they turn around. You're feeling it. I'm feeling it. Everybody's feeling it. We may have had a terrorist attack on a U.S. military base 35 miles south of Washington, D.C. Nobody in the press is talking about this, in the mainstream press anyway. So what's our government doing? Well, our government is doing the following. From thehill.com, Blinken arrives in Ukraine in show of U.S. support. Article by Lauren Irwin. This is from today, as a matter of fact. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday to meet with senior officials and show support for the embattled country in its war against Russia, the first official talks since Congress passed its most recent foreign aid bill. Quote, "We know this is a challenging time," Blinken said in Kiev, where he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Associated Press reported. The secretary, who lobbied hard for more aid for Ukraine, said the United States is sending military resources is going to, quote, make a real difference against the ongoing Russian aggression on the battlefield. In a statement Monday, the State Department announced Blinken's travel and said he would, quote, discuss battlefield updates, the impact of new U.S. security and economic assistance, long-term security, and other commitments and ongoing work to bolster Ukraine's recovery. Quote, Blinken reiterated the United States' enduring support for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity, and our commitment to Ukraine's recovery, the State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in a statement. Now, lately I've been ranting a lot, and I apologize. I can just feel myself getting worked up over this. I can. Blinken reiterated the United States' enduring support for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. Excuse me, I have a question. What the hell about our territorial integrity? We've got a southern border. We have two men. Thank God the MPs stopped them from doing anything really dangerous. One of them's a Jordanian. We have no idea how the hell he got in here. No, I take that back. We do know how the hell he got in here. He crossed the southern border. We got another guy in that truck on the terrorist watch list. And they're driving a truck. God only knows what the hell they were doing. Or maybe say wanted to do. But we want to make sure that we understand. We want the Ukrainians to understand that we have enduring support for their sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. Well, screw you, Blinken, and screw you, Biden, and screw you, all you damn neocons in Washington, D.C. What the hell about our territorial integrity? There are a lot of misconceptions and mischaracterizations and just out and out caricatures that are made about the America First movement in its modern form. Let me put it that way. And one of them is, oh, you guys are just selfish. You only care about America. No, 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 no. No, no. That's not true. We care about everyone. But before we start worrying about everybody else, and this is just my interpretation of America First, I'm sure people would articulate what I'm about to say in different ways. For me, I believe America First is, okay, we'll help out the world if we can, but we're going to take care of our people before we take care of anybody else. And by the way, you Democrats, progressives, neocons, there's not a damn thing wrong with what I just said. There is nothing wrong with taking care of the American people and the American border and the American worker before we start worrying about Ukraine's border and Ukraine's workers and Ukraine's people. Especially when the reports coming out of Ukraine are about corruption and how money is getting moved hand over fist, not going to the places where it should be going and winding up in places it absolutely had no intention of ever being. Now, the kicker to all of this, and I really can't, I'm not going to play the audio that goes with this, but you've got to see it. Okay. As if all of that I just described weren't bad enough, try this. I mean, there's a lot of images that have happened over the past 4 years that ought to help we, the American people. Or let me phrase that differently. There are a lot of images over the past 4 years that ought to help the unawakened wake up and realize what the uniparty is doing to them and doing to the country they live in. And more specifically, there are a lot of images over the past 4 years that have happened that ought to help you to understand what the uninitiated, I say the you, I mean the royal you, but to you, the uninitiated, to you, the unawakened, there are a lot of images that ought to help you understand what the uniparty truly thinks about you and your fellow countrymen. Okay. But this next one may be one of the worst, in my mind, that's happened in the whole of the 4 years. We've got rampant inflation that is eating alive American citizens at the grocery store, buying clothes for themselves, their families, paying rent, making a house payment, putting gasoline in their car. We've got a southern border that's wide the hell open. We've got crime running amok in our neighborhoods and people are being killed. We've got cities that are crumbling around us. And what does the Uniparty do? They go overseas and remind the people that they're hanging out with of our enduring commitment to make sure they're okay. And to celebrate that commitment, they play the guitar. Also from thehill.com, Blinken performs with Kiev band while visiting Zelensky. Article by Miranda Nazaro. I'm going to read just a little bit of this. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken finished his day in Ukraine with a musical performance at a bar in Kiev. Blinken, 62 years old, who arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday to meet with senior officials, was spotted at the Barman in Kiev, where he sang a cover of Rockin' in the Free World by Neil Young, which, by the way, I heard Blinken singing You guys just finished dinner. I am not going to subject you to that kind of torture. His singing sucks. I'm not even going to try and be diplomatic here. No pun intended. His singing just sucks. Okay? So I'm not going to subject you to that. During a music set at the bar, the band singer introduced Blinken, calling him, quote, biggest friend of Ukraine, per video from C-SPAN. The crowd erupted in cheering as Blinken got on stage. Just unbelievable. So you want to see a little bit of this? Here, I'll see if I can pump this up a little bit more. Yeah, okay. That's all right. That's a little too big. Here you go. Check this out. Yeah. Yeah. Wait a minute. I will give you a little bit of audio without him.
Really difficult time. Your soldiers, your citizens, particularly in the Northeast and Kharkiv, are suffering tremendously. But
oh no, forget the fact that the American people are suffering, but hey,
they need to know. You need to know. The United States is with you. So much of the world is with you, and they're fighting not just for free Ukraine, but for the free world. And the free world is with you too.
Oh yeah, and he goes on to play guitar, which he's. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's Eddie Van Halen by any stretch, but yeah. They're he's rubbing elbows with Zelensky and playing guitar in a nightclub in Kiev, promising more money and more munitions and more everything else. And y'all know where I stand on this, okay? Oh, and that's a great point, Gypsy. That's an absolutely great point. This is supposed to be a war zone. The hell is he doing in a bar? The hell's this guy doing? He's on a diplomatic mission representing the United States. And apparently he had enough time to go down to a bar and hang out and play guitar. Great. What does it take? What does it take for the Uniparty and this bunch of Marie Antoinettes in Washington, D.C. to get them to understand how we feel? Don't get no, before anybody's. I'm not talking about violence. I'm not encouraging it. I'm not anything of the sort. But within peaceful, legal limits, what does it take to finally get these people to change? If it's even possible, let's ask that question. Is it even possible at this point to get these people to change? I don't know. I don't think it is possible. That is why I am in the hopes that if not Trump, then some populist conservative in the future in the White House or in the Congress, but it's probably going to have to come from the White House, that some of these institutions have just purely and simply, they have got to go. There just is no getting around it. They've got to go. Our money, our blood, our sweat, our tears, our sons and daughters, our neighborhoods, and for everything we give the federal government, this is what they do to us. This is the amount of respect that they show the American people. That they're not worried about they're not worried about our borders. They're not worried about our workers. They're not worried about our sovereignty, but they're going to make sure they take care of everybody else around the world. Like I said, there's been a lot of images over the better part of 4 years that should hopefully awaken the uninitiated to what's going on and get them to realize something's got to change. And I'm not even talking about saying, oh, I hope they become Republicans. No, because the Republicans are just as corrupt as the Democrats. The Democrats are corrupt. The Republicans are corruption light. They're like a bad version of light beer. Okay? It just, something's got to give. I agree with this wholeheartedly. What about that old verse, blessed are the peacemakers? And the professor's in the house. Good evening, Mr. Watson. Glad to have you here. Yeah, corruption and politics are married at the hip. You're absolutely right, brother. But it doesn't mean I still don't sit there and just shake my head and go, you gotta be kidding me. Gotta be kidding me. Sorry. For all my good news I started off with, then I'm depressing myself with that. I'll tell you what, let's switch subjects. Before we do, let me do a real quick commercial. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We are on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. And this is Chattin on the Porch. We're talking about news items that are out there that are of definite interest. And we're also keeping an eye on some primary elections tonight. As I said earlier, for those of you who just popping in on the live stream, I voted in my state's primaries. So let's take a quick peek at what's going on in West Virginia. And not too much of a shock here. Woo! Wait a minute, however. Woo! I'm still finding this to be funny. Joe Biden's got 26,000 votes. I call it 27. 25% of the votes in. Trump's got like 3-1. Cracks me up. And the primary for the U.S. Senate seat on the Republican side, Jim Justice has been declared the winner. And Democrat side race is still going on. It's going to be interesting. And for governor, Patrick Morrisey, with about 42% of the vote in, is still holding a very solid lead. So we'll see what happens here. Look at something real quick. Charleston. This surprises me. This surprises me that Patrick Morrisey isn't doing better in Kanawha County, because as the state's attorney general, I would have figured he would be doing much better there. But, I could be wrong about that sort of thing. But Morrisey's still holding a lead, although the race has not been called. And let's step out and check Maryland real fast. Oh, okay. We got votes coming in now. About 30% Biden. Okay, no shock there. No shock there. The one race that I'm really watching with interest. Oh, ooh, baby. Okay, let me explain why I just got so excited. Maryland has a very weird Senate race this year. Now, I say that, and I've got to explain what I'm talking about. Let me be a little more specific. Larry Hogan is now the retired governor of the state of Maryland. Larry Hogan is a Republican, and definitely not an America First MAGA Republican. He's probably more establishment Republican. And he jumped in to the Senate race on the Republican side in Maryland. And normally, even though he's a two-term governor and he's got big time state name recognition statewide and everything else, I didn't give him much of a chance. And the reason being is this. This is the Democrat primary. Now, you see this guy right here, this Dave Trone? Dave Trone is a congressman and a multimillionaire. Dave Trone has pumped, if I've heard the number correctly, and if this is true, I get sick thinking about this. David Trone has pumped about $50 million into a Senate primary in Maryland. And the reason that he's had to pump so much money into it is this woman right here, this Angela Alsobrooks, okay? She's not a statewide politician. As I understand it, she's a county commissioner, clerk, Um, but she has given David Trone absolute fits. Now, here's why I'm getting so excited. If Dave Trone wins this race for the primary on the Democrat side, then even though he's going up against Larry Hogan, I would give the edge to Trone only because of the money factor. Okay. However, if Angela also Brooks winds up edging out this David Trone guy, then I got to give the potential edge to Hogan. Now, it's not to say Hogan would win. I don't know. I mean, Maryland is such a Democrat bastion that the idea of a Republican U.S. senator coming out of Maryland is just almost unheard of. But this race right here, keep your eyes tonight on this primary in Maryland on the Democrat side for the U.S. Senate, because I'm telling you right now, if Angela Also Brooks winds up beating this David Trone guy, first of all, in all seriousness, first of all, it would be a major upset. Okay. Second of all, it could go a long way toward the Republicans picking up a seat in Maryland, which they haven't done in decades. Seriously. And even if Larry Hogan were not to win in November, the fact that the Democrats would have to be pumping money into Maryland to try to hang on to that seat is going to make other places around the country, Wisconsin, Nevada, Ohio, others, that's less money that they can spend on their battleground states. So keep your eyes on this one. This could get interesting. Hogan has been declared the winner on the Republican side. I'm not necessarily shocked by that, but yeah, I mean, just for the fun of it, I'm going to keep an eye on this one tonight. This is going to get real interesting. So anyway, yeah, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter. If you haven't done it yet, please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. And Zippy, again, I want to thank you for the Rumble rant on that side. It's very nice of you. So yeah, we're glad all you guys are here. We got our usual favorites, and always glad to have you guys here for Chatting on the Porch. On Rumble, Joe 56984 says, has Jim Justice stated his position on more funding for Ukraine? I'll be honest with you, Joe, I've got to check that. I'm not going to lie. I'm disappointed that Jim Justice won the primary. I would much rather have had Alex Mooney. I think Alex Mooney would have been a much better senator. I mean, would I classify him as MAGA America first? Not necessarily, but he would have been, he's much better than Justice. My problem with Jim Justice, goes back to the pandemic, and he was way, way too much in favor of masks and pushing vaccines and everything else. The links that he was going to try to get people to take the vaccine, to me, were just obscene as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, but Justice is probably going to wind up being the next U.S. Senator from West Virginia. But no, I'm not really sure what his position on Ukraine funding is, but he's probably like most establishment Republicans, if I had to guess, but I'm not totally for sure. Tell you what, let us switch gears because we've got some news. We've got some news about the Trump trial, and some of this is really, if you've been following this thing, there's good news and bad news out of this, and it all depends on how you look at it. Okay. Bad news. Trump has been denied the appeal that he made to the New York appeals court, or at least a small subsection of it's been denied. Okay. And this article is written by Wendell Husebro, great reporter at Breitbart, by the way. Really great reporter. Former President Donald Trump will remain gagged during his criminal trial in Manhattan. The New York appeals court ruled Tuesday. Trump can now petition the New York Court of Appeals. Okay. Hey, good evening, Corey. Glad to have you here, brother. Good to see you, sir. The gag order prevents Trump from making public statements, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so that's the bad news. Now, by way of by way of good news, it got spicy today. Very spicy in the courtroom because the cross-examination of Michael Cohen has begun, and when I say spicy, I think you're going to understand what I mean. Let's go back to Breitbart for a second, and I'll show you what's going on. Trump's defense lawyer grills Michael Cohen over TikTok streams to open heated cross-examination. You called me a little shit. Article, let's see if this is by Hughesborough. No, Nick Gilbertson. Okay. Former President Donald Trump's defense lawyer wasted no time in questioning Michael Cohen about his TikTok page on Tuesday, where he has frequently held live streams that he fundraises from while talking about the case and disparaging Trump. As soon as the cross-examination began, Trump's defense attorney, Todd Blanche, asked Cohen, quote, "We have never met, but you know who I am, don't you?" According to Matthew Lee Russell of Inner City Press. Cohen responded, "Yes." "You called me a little shit on TikTok." Blanche followed up, "Woo! Woo!" He went right at it. Oh, my goodness. Sounds like something I would say, Cohen said, forcing Justice Juan Marchand to order counsel's approach. Oh, this is great. Oh, what else have we got here? Daily Caller Courts reporter Caitlin Richardson know that Marchand struck the question from the record. ABC News published an article in late April detailing Cohen's activity on TikTok and how it could turn into a problem for prosecutors during the trial. Blanche also asked Cohen if he had commented about jury selection, drawing an objection from the prosecutors, which Marchand sustained. Cohen further claimed that he was called and told that David Pecker's testimony corroborated him when asked by Blanche about comments he had made about it on TikTok. Oh, it got real spicy real quick between these guys. And yeah, really interesting. Now, I say there's good news and bad news about all this. And this trial's now been going on for almost 3 weeks. Trump has had his foot nailed to the floor in New York City. And I'm going to read you a little bit of an article here in a minute that ought to give you some perspective about how grossly ineffective what the Democrats are doing, how ineffective it is, and really how Trump is benefiting from it. But before I do, I got to play you something. An exchange between a CNN reporter and James Carville. Check this out. Whoop, wait a minute. Yep.
Maybe the only trial.
Yep.
Know that this might be maybe the only trial that we see of Donald Trump this year. Is it time for Democrats to move on and look at the fundamentals of this race and not see these trials as somehow this X factor that's going to have a huge influence on how this thing turns out in November?
Yeah, I think that we have to, because the fundamentals right now, frankly, are depressing, and we have all of these events, and they change little or nothing.
Look, I go back to what I was saying much earlier in the stream. Okay, people like Carville, Mark Penn, Doug Schoen, old timers in the Democrat Party who have worked presidential races can see what's going on here. They're trying to tell the White House, they're trying to get the message to Biden that you've got to do something. I know you don't, Corey. I don't hold it against you. You know, you didn't. I know he's not one of y'all. I get it. And yeah, well, I don't know, they call him a commie. Close, but not a commie. Now, all the old timers in the Democrat Party realize this isn't working. They've got to do something. And to tell you how bad it's getting for them, let me show you something. This ran this morning in the New York Post. And if you're not following this lady's work, I really recommend her to you, Miranda Devine. She had a column this morning. Dems pinned Trump in New York City courtroom, and he just turns it into his own personal campaign stage. When Joe Biden flew to San Francisco on Thursday for some fundraisers, reporters noted that all the televisions on Air Force One were tuned into MSNBC, where the chyron read, Stormy Daniels wrapped 7+ hours of testimony in Trump money trial. The president might be enjoying the wall-to-wall coverage of his opponent stuck in a Manhattan courtroom, but it's probably not the electoral gift that Biden imagines. Ever the showman, Donald Trump has flipped the adversity of his lawfare travails into a triumph of free media. Listen to this, worth almost $2 billion, according to data provided exclusively by his campaign. With cameras banned inside the courtroom, the president makes his own news when he turns up at the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse at Center Street each day. Each morning and some afternoons, Trump stands in the draughty 15th floor corridor outside the courtroom and addresses the assembled press pack without notes for 3 to 5 minutes, delivering pithy political bullets on the news of the day, trashing Biden, Judge Juan Merchan, and the lawfare the Democrats are waging against him. And I tell you what, and I'm not just saying this because I'm supporting Trump in the election, but honestly, those little 3 to 5 minute sessions he's got with the press, Trump is genuinely turning this to his advantage because all the cameras are trained on him. They're not looking at anybody else. Everybody, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all of them are fixated on Trump. What does Trump do with it? He talks about an issue, immigration, crime because of immigration, inflation, etc., the lawfare against him. At first, to me, he was overplaying his hand. It's like, oh, this is unfair. This is well, either he got the idea or somebody on his campaign gave him the idea. Mr. President, look, you got microphones all over the place here. Why don't you just take it and do a campaign issue out of it? And for 3 to 5 minutes each time, sometimes 2 times a day, he's got the microphones and he's absolutely running with it. But let's go back to the article. A little further from Miranda Devine. His monologues, carried live by most TV networks and amplified online, have delivered his campaign, and now listen to this, an average of $260 million in free media, digital media each day, according to a report by the Meltwater Media Monitoring Agency, which estimates the equivalent cost of placing advertisements. The first day of the Trump trial, April 15th, delivered a whopping $440 million equivalent. The average weekly earned media during the trial has been $1.2 billion per week. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Democrats. The Meltwater figures cover only digital media. On TV, Nielsen ratings showed an initial boost in viewers in the first week of the trial for the most obsessed networks, CNN and MSNBC, of 30 and 6% respectively. Viewership fell in the second week because, without cameras in the courtroom, coverage relies on pundits breathlessly giving play-by-play of Trump's head movements or lip pursing. Breaking news, a courtroom sketch. With an eye for optics, Trump delights in the fact that the 80-year-old Art Deco granite courthouse with its harsh fluorescent lights has turned out somehow to be a flattering stage set, and the vault-like ceilings make his voice resonate rather than echo. A little bit more on this thing. Every day, he takes pleasure in laying into Trump-hating Merchan, who has not recused himself despite the fact that his daughter Lauren heads a political consulting firm that runs digital campaigns for Democrat candidates and posted a photo of social media of Trump behind bars. She's absolutely right. Trump is absolutely turning this to his advantage. When this first started, I was talking about the fact, look, they've got his foot nailed to the floor up there. He may as well go ahead and, start going around in New York City and campaigning. We saw what he did in New Jersey over the weekend. Good grief, 80,000 people. But and I hadn't thought about what Miranda Devine was talking about here, but she's absolutely right. You can't pay for this kind of media. And if you did, you'd be paying out, 9-figure or 10-figure monies in digital advertising or TV advertising. You can't do better than this. Now, granted, it's for all the wrong reasons, but in those and would it be much better if Donald Trump were out doing campaign rallies or talking to donors? Yeah, I agree with that. I don't disagree. But if you're going to be handed lemons, make lemonade out of it. And that's exactly what Trump's doing here. I think I saw was I think it was Gypsy who was mentioning earlier, do I watch Lionel or Lionel Nation? I do, by the way. He was commenting about this very thing. He said, no, this is not a good thing. And by and large, I don't disagree with him. Trump would be much better served, be on the campaign trail, talking to voters, going into local diners, talking to big-time donors, small or large. Yeah, but like I said, if life's going to hand you lemons, make some lemonade out of it. And boys, he's squeezing this for all he's worth. Yeah, he's absolutely using this advantage. So, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that to y'all's attention. I thought you'd get a kick out of it. Oh, by the way, and I'll end it up on this. There's an article that came out from theexpress.com, and there's some more polling that's been done. And again, take this for what it's worth. This has to do with the question of vice president. Now, I point this out in part because of who did the poll. I don't know if you are familiar with him, but Patrick Basham is a pollster from the United Kingdom. Good guy. He does good, solid work. I became familiar with him from back in 2020. Again, thank you, Rich Barris and Robert Barnes. But he did a poll recently about who Republican voters think, or actually not even Republican voters, I take that back, who voters think Trump is going to pick for his Veep. Okay. And Patrick Basham does polling for what's called the Democracy Institute and the Daily Express US. Of the 10 names, here's how the vote went. And I'll just put this up here for y'all's consideration. 1,500 voters were polled. 22% of all voters think that Donald Trump is going to pick Carson. 20% think he's going to pick Tulsi Gabbard, and 13% think he's going to pick J.D. Vance. Now, again, they're not asking the question, who should he pick? They're asking the question, who do you think he will pick? And from my part, with certain reservations about Tulsi Gabbard, okay? With certain reservations about Tulsi Gabbard, I'll say this. Laying those reservations aside, any of those top 3 in the poll, I would not have a problem with at all. Not at all. So yeah, thought I'd bring that to y'all's attention. Let me see. Can I drop this? Yeah, I think I probably can. Let me drop this in chat if y'all want to look at this on your own. There we go. And I'll do my best to drop it on the hang on. Nah, okay. It's got to do another way. Anyway, so that's all I've got for this evening. We're going to be back for sure Thursday, and I will be back this weekend. I'm actually thinking about adding another day of the week. Right now, I'm doing these on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm trying to decide if I want to do it on Monday or Wednesday. I think I'm ready to add another day of the week. Yeah. See, this is I'm with you on this. I'm with you on this, Gypsy. That I've got reservations about Tulsi. They're just. I know that people on the right are hot to trot for her for the Veep, but I just, yeah, she makes me nervous. Yeah, I'm with you. But yeah, we're going to be back for sure Thursday of this week. I'm thinking, I'm really weighing in, leaning toward adding another regular day of the week to do this. I need to start picking it up. I know I keep saying that, and I apologize to you guys because I'm being a wussy about this, but I need to pick it up. So I'm thinking about either a Monday or a Wednesday stream, and I haven't quite decided how I want to do it yet. Who knows? I might go to 4 days through the week and then 1 day on the weekends. I have no idea yet, but we'll see. Anyway, for sure, we're going to be back Thursday. In the meanwhile, keep your eyes open. If you've got stories out there, please feel free to share them with me. I'll be glad to talk about them. And in the meanwhile, y'all stay safe, love each other, protect each other, and we'll be back here this Thursday. A short where Dr. McCutcheon, let me see what I can do with that. No guarantees, but let me see what I can do. Anyway, yeah, for sure we're back on Thursday. In the meanwhile, y'all stay safe out there, and y'all be careful, love each other, and remember the words of that great American philosopher Tom T. Hall when he said, "It is faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money." Thanks for being here tonight. I love you guys, and we'll see you Thursday night.